Meeting of Tuesday, August 14th. My name is Jim Lehan. To my left is Mr. Calcutt. To his left is Mr. Hathaway. And to his left is the one and only Marion Harrington, our administrative assistant. Mr. Palumbo called about an hour ago, and he is traveling. Hoped to be here, but he wasn't on a train and didn't get quite. He got a little bit more delayed than you do, I'm afraid to say. So he will be unable to make it this evening. So. I want to remind everybody that this meeting is being both audio and visual. That's what happens when you wait for half an hour. Anyway, we are being recorded this evening, both audio and visual recordings. You may find them on YouTube on channel 42. I think I've really much messed that up sufficiently, but anyway.
I know where to go.
Hopefully you can follow that. Would you please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. I cannot remember a time when we had more than two people in here at 7 o'clock, so. Mr. Hathaway, would you read the agenda?
I'd be happy to. Board of Selectmen meeting for August 14th. First order of business, we have the Highland Lake residents in to discuss Highland Lake. We have a report of the warrants, 3 different days. We have a number of action items, including the naming of Cleary Circle, 1-day liquor license, a water bill abatement consideration, directional signs, 1-day liquor license, bid review for Lawrence Street Bridge project, and consideration of opening the public comment period for the 2019 water, solid waste, and cemetery rates. We also have a number of discussion items, including town meeting timeline, again, the Lawrence Street Bridge, ad hoc committee, and goals. And then we have an executive session regarding litigation on the Run and Gun ranch. We did have one bit of unanticipated business come in regarding some Chapter 90 requests, but I think we'll get to that after the Highland Lake discussion.
Okay. Just one quick thing for folks. There are, as you notice on the agenda, there are 2 items listed under Lawrence Street Bridge. We're going to combine those as one discussion point, and we're going to do that at 8:30 because police chief cannot be here prior to that, and we want him to certainly be a critical component of that conversation. So it will not start before 8:30. Highland Lake, please, welcome. Thanks for your patience, too.
Sure. Thank you for having us. And you have the handouts?
I'm sorry?
You have the handouts of the slides?
We do.
Yes. So again, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Arthur Franzak. I live at 14 Main Street. I'm one of the abutters who lives around Highland Lake. We and other concerned Norfolk citizens formed a group called the Friends of Highland Lake. Several of us are here tonight, and we wanted to share 4 very specific points with the Selectmen. Those are the role that neighbors have played in maintaining the lake over several decades. Second being something new, invasive water chestnut. Third, efforts that we have made to then remove them and our goal in doing that. And lastly, to request and discuss help from the town. So I wanted to cover those 4 things tonight. At the end, we can do a short Q&A. This is an overview. We have more detailed information, but I also don't, this is a lot to digest. So we are approaching this kind of in the spirit of partnership. And at the end, please let us know what's helpful. Absolutely. So any questions about the agenda or our little agenda? No? Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Thanks, Jack.
I'll stay up with you.
Very snappy. So there's a whole bunch of neighbors, but this isn't just neighbors. It's also people who use the lake. We get fishermen, folks who aren't necessarily directly have shoreline upon it, but King Philip Trail, other roads nearby. And our collective memory goes back several decades. Folks have always pitched in. It used to be a privately owned lake. I believe it was Dr. Weber who owned the lake and the surrounding open space. And folks have pitched in over the years doing things like helping clear the spillway, pitching in to prune plants. Sometimes the lake was drained, helping dredge. Even when I think the prison sewer line that predates me, but there was some excitement about that, and folks banded together with the town, I believe, and that was addressed. So neighbors have always been involved. We can go to the next slide. And in that involvement, we noticed something new this year. There's a fast-growing plant started to appear from the shoreline on certain sides and working its way in. The left picture here is a before shot, roughly around when the town purchased the lake. I think it was 2008. The shot to the right, and then a zoom in underneath. If you've gone to the lake, you've noticed that there's this bed, there's this kind of blanket of these weed plant-like things. And we talked around. We spoke to Concom. We talked to a lake management and cleaning company named Solitude. Concom knows them. We've also spoken to the Stony Brook Conservation, and they all said the same thing. You've got water chestnut. What's water chestnut? It's a really, really invasive surface plant. What it does is it grows, and around this time of year in August, it'll drop its seed pods. There are these nuts, about 4 nuts per plant. And these seeds will go to the bottom, and then it overwinters in seed form. And then next season, sometime in the spring, I believe, maybe early summer, it'll then expand and grow. Each seed can live up to 10 years in the sediment underneath, and it just multiplies like rabbits. It is correct. Birds can bring it in, boats, it kind of sticks to things and it just makes its way through. And we all realized that this was a problem, and everyone said, hey, you know, as much as you can get out, the better. So the next slide, our goal was to restore the lake to its previous condition, our sort of baseline of, you know, having a surface that's not covered in plants. If the water chestnut does take over, it impacts the wildlife, it impacts the fish underneath, the type of plants that grow. To me, it looks kind of just swampy, like the geese and the ducks and such won't go there. You can't get a boat through it. I've actually tried. It really changes the whole kind of contour, and I think even maybe some of the flow of the lake. It just makes it, I think, more stagnant in general. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has a brochure about this. It's a basic 2-pager. I can pass it out to you after this. The leading headline there is take it out before it takes over. They have numbers that you're supposed to call if you see it. The basic message is get it out as fast as you can, because if it starts to multiply, the problem just gets exponentially more expensive and more problematic. This is something which is regional. It's throughout this area, not everywhere, but that's where it's seen. It's not indigenous to North America, is my understanding. So that's great. So our goal is to then pull the plants out. And you can see off to the right, this is a neighborhood work party. We got together, folks who were able to either go into the lake with waders on, about, you know, chest-high waders, or with canoes and kayaks. We went out there and just started hauling the stuff to shore. It's a fair amount of work. It's a special kind of fun when you're kind of trudging around in the mud and silt that wants to suck you down. And the lake gets pretty deep in a hurry, so we had to kind of transfer to canoes and kayaks and such. And when you do bring this stuff ashore, you can sort of see somebody invented, I forgot who it was in our group, it's sort of a piece of insulation, little platforms, we could drag it. So we've ramped up, and we've had several weekends of neighbors coming out. We've clocked close to 300 person hours doing this.
Wow.
And the good news is we're making a dent, but it's really obvious, despite spending, this is like a 4-hour shift usually, there's no way we're going to do this by ourselves. It's just progressed too far. The picture there, you sort of see in a 4-hour period, between 6 and 8 of us cleared a channel about maybe 1 or 2 canoes wide from the shoreline to the center lake. And if the camera were to pan to the right, you just see a carpet that just goes across the inlets and coves. So, you know, you try not to, it's like, what do they say, when you're climbing a mountain, just kind of don't look up at how far you have to go. So we're still chipping away, because they say every plant you take out, it does lessen the problem. But after August, when the seed pods drop, you know, really doing that any further, it just isn't constructive. You have to wait till the next season. So, we covered everything. Which brings us really to asking the town for help, the last slide here. Again, I talked about us as citizens really did and are still trying to do our best to kind of ramp up. We've talked to different community groups, the Lions. We've made contact with the Cub Scouts. Really, we need to figure out what the plan is for next season. I have the 3 months up there because I think that's roughly our window. August, you're getting much too close to then everything propagating again. And I don't know how early they actually bloom when winter sort of stops being that cold. So how can we bring people together to then help address this, whether it's other people in town? I don't know the state of other lakes in the town. Other people have kind of talked about, while the town currently, I don't believe, budgets anything for lake management, this kind of thing could happen there too if it hasn't already started. Are there other towns that we could get together with? This land was purchased by Norfolk in 2008 for the open spaces, for the historical value and the recreational value of that park there. It's called Fales Park now. I think the lower segment is called Highland Grove. And as the owners of the lake and as one of the abutters, we would love to have a conversation about partnership and what the town could do to help manage this problem. I think I've covered most of the points here. We have some specific proposals. There's ideas that folks have come up with. Barbara Bartholomew has been very active with this. She has some ideas. We've talked to companies like Solitude, and they have some suggestions of what other towns have done. So we have more data, but I'm just going to kind of stop here. And that, I think, frames our goal, our experience, and just wanted to ask what you guys, if you had any questions right now, and what would be helpful in terms of next steps. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, but let me start with
Right
Ken.
ahead.
Oh, okay. Start with me. I've seen this type of wildlife, but this is not my area of expertise. Is this a surface plant, or is this embedded in?
It's a surface plant. It's a surface plant, but it drops tendrils down. So what you generally do is you sort of kind of go underneath the surface to try to get the tendrils which go, and you kind of ball it up, and then you haul it off.
So how do you, someone must know, but is there a way to remove this on a permanent basis, or is this something you just have to annually go in every year now and clear?
Over probably a 10 to 12 year period is when the scope of the effort would be. Thankfully, the work is supposed to then diminish over time. So the first goal is just try to contain it and stop it from growing, but there will be residual from years past, which will bloom. Again, the seeds will last sometimes up to 10 or 12 years.
So the effort that you need is really, you need labor.
There's specific machines. For example, there's like lake harvesters. They look kind of like an agricultural combine, much smaller, on like a boat. And they can go through and they could pull stuff up. It's not quite as effective as hand pulling, but it's at a much better scale. They also have chemicals, FDA approved things that, I'm sorry, I think it's EPA approved, not FDA. We're not going to eat it. EPA approved.
We're not putting it in an omelet, that's for
right,
sure.
That's right. It's funny because we've talked about, boy, I wish we could eat this stuff. When you're staring at piles of water chestnut all day, it's like, can we do something with this? But yes, so a combination usually of mechanical removal plus chemicals are really the way to attack this the most effectively. Some towns will share this type of equipment. So there's different kind of ways of attacking it, but those are the basic tools: hand pulling, mechanical removal, and then chemicals.
And is it over the entire lake? I haven't been down there in a year or two. But
No,
is it emanating from where the roadway is near the dam or near the bridge?
If you go back to the first slide, if you would, Jack. It's okay. This is fine. It's coming from sort of here, so it's from these shorelines from the
So it's away from the
east
dam.
and south, and there's a little bit over here. So it's kind of working its way from here around. It hasn't really gone past the coves yet.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much it costs to rent one of these machines?
We do have costs to either have Solitude do it themselves, and I have handouts about that,
Okay.
which I can pass out. It's difficult because there's cost to then kind of transport it there. They also charge you based upon the acreage of the lake that they're actually doing. I think overall with chemicals we were talking about $20,000, maybe $30,000 ish.
Total?
Correct. I have the printouts, but it's a very dense email.
More than that.
It's more than that.
Mid-20s.
Okay.
20 to 30 then, okay.
We're not talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's,
Now, Highland and the property all around it was purchased by CPC, with CPC funds.
that was my understanding,
Right.
yes.
Have
Although,
you,
was there plan to turn it over to either,
well, but no, but the fact that it was purchased by CPC funds opens us an opportunity to reapproach CPC.
which Barbara has
So
suggested?
you have
Barbara's
approached them?
proposal-
Yes, I conferred with Cindy, and
You need to get a microphone, Barbara.
it's for the recording. I said I had a conversation with Cindy regarding whether CPC funds would be available, and it's pretty much ruled out due to the fact that we constitute maintenance. And the CPC funds can't be used for maintaining properties that have been acquired with their funds. So therefore, it's a no. There is one remote angle we might possibly create a short-term project
Thanks, Art.
to remove the threat to the lake, but that would be it, and it would not suffice. In other words, it would be just a stopgap, but it wouldn't be a permanent solution. There isn't really a permanent solution. Basically, you're talking of like a 3-year cycle. If you go in and cut all the weeds out, remove them, they're gonna grow back in 3 years. If you go in and chemically treat, you're gonna have the same cycle. It'll put them down for 3 years, and then they'll recur. So basically, there's no quick answer. There isn't an answer, shall we say. It's a continuum that you have to keep battling it, control it, and maintain it, and maintain your control until they come up with a solution as to how to eradicate it, which we don't have.
And my understanding is the problem does go down. It's not the same amount of maintenance over time as you chip
No,
away at
no,
it?
over time, you can reduce
Right.
the area. But you were also speaking of the fact that it's affecting other town air ponds. City Mills Pond, Comey's Pond, Town Pond. If you go and inspect those visually, you'll see all three are seriously affected by the same problem.
Yeah, I know Tom Pond does.
And that basically, it's not unique to Highland Lake. It's perhaps, it's the largest body of water of the group, but basically, and it's like, I read the other day that, or heard the other day that you have a grant that Representative Dooley got $50,000 grant for the dam at City Mills. And that crossed my mind, to what point? Why are you repairing the dam when in 3 years, if you do nothing about the weeds, the lake will disappear and you won't need a dam?
Art, on here you say the cost, I assume you mean thousands, not millions, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct. So,
Just a
the-
wild guess.
The hydro raking brochure, which is on top of the emails that we've gotten from Solitude, this is we pay Solitude to come and then do it. This is Barbara's proposal, which is the one-pager,
Okay.
which is about trying to purchase equipment and have the town approach it from that angle.
Well, you are right. We've been very aggressive at purchasing opportunities like Highland and situations like that, and we're probably not really good at after the fact.
Right.
That's a fair criticism.
Well, I mean, my concern is, of course, that the lake is half of the park.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And if you figure the town spent $500,000 to acquire this property, then you're wiping $250,000 down the drain if you don't save the
Very,
lake.
very fair comment. Yeah.
Is
Well,
there?
I mean, Kevin, you're
I
up.
mean, you hit most of my questions. The only one I was going to ask was, did you hear about another municipality utilizing this service from Solitude
Yes, we have.
in this area?
I don't know the specific towns, but yes, they were recommended both.
Norwood?
They just did it this year. Chemically treated.
Rantham did also.
Did they clear it as well? Did they? They did. So they cleared and treated?
What this doesn't cover is hauling it away. So they'll put it on the shoreline for us, but yeah, and we have had discussions with CPC, DPW, who have made some offers of, hey, we'll come help remove what it is that we do. So there's some extra steps after to then dispose of it.
So Rantham just
Okay.
had a chemical treatment for Lake Pearl. And this
Well,
past, the end
I
of
mean,
August.
it's hard to deny that we need to do this. I mean, and you're right, Barbara, we spend, I don't know what the total cost was, but Highland was 485, somewhere in that range.
Those two.
I know that the town operates on a sort of budget cycle of twice a year. We have town meeting twice a year. Well, the budget cycle is annual, but in terms of decisions.
Semi-budget cycle. The budget cycle is May, because we're
Okay.
in a fiscal year, June 30th, July 1 through June 30th. We can do some transfers in the fall town meeting. But those we can't make the bucket bigger. But we can move money around with permission of the voters from one budget to another, or free cash, for that matter. But if we're gonna make it a permanent budgeted item, that would be done in the spring.
I think having a
But those are
set-
two
go ahead.
different, two different issues. You know, yeah.
Well, and really, I'm just thinking of between now and the season that we talked about, you know, spring,
Yeah.
what would it take in terms of either decisions or committees, or, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking is, what would the next steps be in order to orchestrate something, given the, you know, restraints or the constraints that we have?
Well, we have the quickest way would be fall town meeting, which is November 17th, if I have the right date?
No,
No?
it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, so it's pretty late.
Oh, that's right, okay. 27th, off by 10 days. And we could, if the board so voted to, we could fund or set some money aside to, I'm not sure if we could set $70,000 aside at this point in time, because it has to come from within our existing resources.
Understood.
But if we can find it, and we'll get our free cash certified at the end of September or October, we'll certainly know it before the November town meeting.
Yeah, we gotta figure out which approach, I think, you know, are we gonna purchase a service, or are we gonna purchase equipment?
Personally, I absolutely favor doing something here. We'll figure it out. We could certainly fund the short-term project, I would think, without the 25, 30 range of getting it cleared out. But as you say, that's a rental, and almost half the price of buying it. So,
Again, I think I covered all the points that I had wanted to. We're probably going to keep going out, at least until we see the seeds drop, maybe one more weekend. Last weekend it rained, unfortunately, so we couldn't
think
go
it's
out and
rained every
have our
weekend.
usual weekend fun. But after that, we're really, I guess, just sort of waiting to hear back and, you know, how we could help.
okay, Kevin, your thoughts?
I think, like you said, something needs to be done. Just need to figure out how to do it,
Yeah.
one way or another.
Well, the two of us are committed to finding a solution to this for you. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. It is a beautiful piece of property. It really is a beautiful piece of property. It's a shame it's not used more and enjoyed more by folks. So I would suggest we see if we can do something in the fall town meeting, because maybe we do partial solution short-term on fall and longer-term solution, and I don't know. Let us think it through, and Jeff's not here, so we'll
Bring them up to speed.
bring him up to speed on it, but we'll figure out something to help you.
Okay, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it to our attention.
So I assume we should we'll contact back through you if, rather than the whole group? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm thinking Mr.
That'd be great.
McGee is here, but,
And,
you know, we'll,
to all of you, thanks for putting in the hard work to save the neighborhood.
A lot of free workouts and exercises, yes.
And I promise we won't chop, if you see anything green and chopped up on that first Sunday, Saturday at the church,
Exactly.
don't eat it.
I'm not gonna say have everything now.
It won't be an all.
I won't be all this time. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for coming in.
you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before you came in, I cook omelets.
Oh, okay.
And remember, I walked in and said, "Oh, the omelet man." That's what that silly conversation
Gotcha.
was about. But several of these people come for that Saturday morning breakfast. Have you walked Highland Lake?
No, never.
It's absolutely beautiful. If you drive down, I'm gonna wait till everybody clears out anyway. If you drive down, come on, King Philip Way, and down where that old railroad bridge is, and take a right under that railroad bridge, immediately after that, there's a
Island Lake Drive.
parking area. It's Highland Lake Drive. And they've cleared it. Barbara did a beautiful, I guess I'd call it a plaque, granite thing with its history and all of that. And when you walk down it, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of the prettiest pieces of property we have in town. And We spent
Not this weekend.
well over $700,000 on this.
Really?
Yeah. Between the land and the lake, yeah, there were 2 separate purchases. Wow. But it's beautiful land. Beautiful land. What are we, 7:30, okay. Mr. McGee, do you want to come up and, we have, Mr. McGee brought to our attention about an hour ago, an unanticipated agenda item regarding road work. We do have, the chair does have the discretion of adding an item to the agenda if it was unanticipated. This was not brought to our attention until 6:30 this evening. So, Mr. McGee.
Jim, what's been brought to my attention well, with regards to paving our streets and the, by use of Chapter 90 funds, is that our contracted paving contractor has available certain dates to mill and pave some of these streets, which is the method of repair for the streets that are listed here, which I have a pass out if anybody's interested. And if we don't take advantage of this opportunity, I'm afraid we're gonna have to wait for school to be, school will be in session, we'll be going into the fall time of year, people will be back from vacations. And I would think it very advantageous to take advantage of this, if I could get the board to recommend these funds that have been reviewed at a prior meeting in the last spring, but not approved. It was just a part of a larger list. And the list goes on too, there's many more streets than this here. But that's it, if I could have the funds approved, we could start work as early as this coming Wednesday, week from tomorrow.
So the Cliff Note version of this is that the reason this is coming in for the last moment is that you were unable to get a commitment from contractors?
Well, we're part of a 19
Am I
community
understanding that
surge bid.
correctly?
That's right. And so we bound to use P.J. Keating, the winner of the bid, and you cannot beat their price. I mean, it would be double if I went to another contractor. So goes without saying, that's the contractor that we need to use, we want to use. But they won so much of the bid that they're thinned out. Their company is hiring from P.J. Landers, they're using Lawrence Lynch to come in and do their work. And if we don't get them in here now with this opportunity, we're gonna probably have to wait till October, November, which is not a good thing.
And these are all streets that, I know these are all streets that you presented to us in the beginning.
Right.
Yep.
This is a partial list, actually, of what we really need, but with the money, that's what we think we can achieve, and we'd like to get it before the buses roll.
For the folks at home, you want to just run down that list?
I sure will. So what we're looking for is the board to vote to approve the following streets, I'll name them, for construction and paving to be funded with Chapter 90 funds for a total amount of $192,538. The list is Boardman Street at Rockwood Road intersection, which is it's a little bit more than an intersection, but it's the road right at the top of the Freeman Kennedy School. North Street from the Rentham Town Line to Mirror Lake Ave, which is 900 feet. North Street from Union Street to Marshall Street, which is 1,450 feet. Diamond Street from the Diamond Street Culvert to Union Street, 550 feet. Union Street from Diamond Street, 500 feet north of Diamond Street, 500 feet. Union Street from Grove Street to 556 feet south of Grove Street, 556 feet. And then Union and Short Street, with a total of about 1,400 feet, they are connecting streets. So these are small parts of a handful of streets, but we can't afford to go entire lengths. And this is what we agreed to do at a previous meeting in the spring, do some section work, curb to curb, and get the best, get us through this winter until maybe some funding comes again next year.
Kevin?
Is there anything else that we would need to keep in uncommitted funds balance for, or is this all it's intended for?
I think the board has often agreed to have a minimum of $50,000 for emergency funds. This says $43,000, but we feel that with the committed funds that we already have, that we're gonna have a balance for the streets that were approved in the spring. So I can't estimate how much, but I think it'll get us up above $50,000. It's good to have on hand for that emergency situation.
We've had, well, the most glaring one most recently was a culvert gave way, and it was on Diamond Street.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Couple of years ago.
And was flooding homes.
Mhm.
So we didn't expect it, didn't anticipate it, no one can, and it happened. And that's what we keep the reserve for, is to be able to deal with situations like that.
Got
There's
it.
more paving going on this year too, Kevin. I didn't put it in here because this is just specific to Chapter 90, but we're gonna be doing work on Meeting House Road. We're gonna be doing paving Saddle Ridge, which is a subdivision. We're gonna be paving the subcontractor now. We'll be paving Warren Ave. So there's a whole bunch of other things going on, but it's being funded from different sources. This is Chapter 90.
Got it. Thanks.
So, two of us, we must agree. Are you willing to support a vote for the request for $192,538 from Chapter 90 funds?
I am.
Okay, so moved?
So moved.
I will second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing it in, Bob. Better getting it done now than October.
Bob, while you're here, just.
We need to sign something for you?
Put that together. You can, so long as you voted it, I'll bring it around to
Okay.
Marion for
Okay,
another time.
fine.
I just figure while you're here that, any more timeline on the Seekonk Street, the gas line, folks?
Good question. Good question.
We paved Seekonk Street, a good portion of Seekonk Street, over a mile, and that was 5 years ago. So 5 years on the button, the gas company wants to come in and improve their system, install a 12-inch gas main to go from Campbell Street to Stop River Road, approximately 5,000-something feet, which is the better part of a mile.
Wow.
We've held them, their request came in a couple of years ago, and we've held them to the moratorium. One way or the other, it looks like it's going to happen, is to improve the system. But what we did get out of them was a curb-to-curb restoration. So they're gonna give us $250,000 plus to repave it just the way it is right now, in perfect condition, at any time we want. So what's gonna happen with that, just so you know, is they're gonna come in, they're gonna put a trench down the street through our new pavement, 5-year-old pavement. They're gonna go to certain houses that have requested connection, so they're gonna have, we call those laterals. So every few hundred feet, you might see a lateral, every 1,000 feet, you might see a lateral. And what I'd like to do is let that trench settle, it'll all be saw cut, and wait some more time, because people are gonna request more laterals. So when they do this, and this time next year, we'll be ready to pave it. We probably don't wanna pave it, we'll leave it in trench condition, which is good. I mean, you'll go down at 90 miles an hour, whatever. But if we pave it and then more people decide to connect the gas, here we go again, cutting into the street. So I say we pave it, maintain a smooth trench for smooth rideability, and let it go for another 3-5 years before we decide. But we'll have $250,000 sitting in the bank, or whatever that figure is. Same thing will go for Highland Lake. They're looking for another 2,200 feet or 2,500 feet to do the same thing down Highland Lake Ave. From the bridge, I think that's Lincoln Street, all the way to the Walpole Town Line. That street's in rough shape, so we got curb-to-curb restoration on that. So we're gonna get another $250,000 to do a curb-to-curb restoration. That's beneficial.
Does the money that they pay us to redo the road, if we don't do this for 4 or 5 years down the line, is the escalating consideration gonna take that out of the price range?
No, I made sure that we can take that money and we can put it in the sidewalks or anything you want. It's
No,
up
I
to our
mean,
discretion.
Asking
no,
if the,
If we don't redo the road, if we put the money aside.
Right.
And then we're gonna use that in 3 or 4 years to repave
Right.
the road, the money they give us today, these costs escalate 8 to 10% a year. Is it gonna be sufficient to do it? Or should we?
Can't estimate that.
Hmm?
I can't estimate that. You're asking me how much will asphalt be at that point? What's the
Well,
labor
my
cost?
point, I know, but I mean, shouldn't we, is there a way we can anticipate that and get a little bit more to anticipate that factor?
I inflated it. I've got a pretty conservative figure on it right now. I mean, you can review that if you'd like.
No, you would
And
know
on
better
top of
than
it all,
me.
it's curb to curb. I mean, I
Okay.
think
So
we
you're
get
comfortable that it's
very
sufficient?
comfortable, yes.
Okay. And it may be cheaper in 3 or 4 years, you never know.
Well, if you look back at what
Price of
asphalt.
oil.
Yeah. If you look at what the cost of asphalt was 5 years ago and what it is right now, the only escalating factor is oil. It's
Yeah,
just a
right, it's the
variable.
price of oil,
It's the
yeah.
same price. So I think we're gonna be okay
Okay.
with those funds.
Sir?
Sounds good.
We certainly will get some, you know, there will be people who, rightfully so, people will be frustrated that we've got a new road that's gonna get, you know, dug up, but, you know, at the end of the day, we can negotiate with the gas company, we can't stop them at the end of the day, so I think Bob in particular has done a great job getting curb-to-curb restoration funds from them. And as he talked about, you know, we'll let it settle, let all the curb cuts get, all the, laterals get done, and then, we'll pave it and end up with a good product at the end of the day.
Through the construction period, the detour is quite significant too, but,
Yeah.
notices will be passed out to
There won't be
all
any
affected
closure, will
neighborhoods.
there?
There will be some
Yes.
closure on Seekonk, because the way they talked about the boom truck that they have to have, to do the work, they'll actually have to close the road, so we've gotta, as you're coming up from Rentham, as you get to the cemetery, you'll have to actually go around Main Street to the center of town, up to Cleveland, and then back to Seekonk if you wanna continue on, you know, into Medfield.
And how long do you think those closures will be? Not that we can do anything about it, but
I-
Well, it's
Day to day, I think, a couple of days at a time, and then maybe it'll be passed through, and then sometimes it'll be one-way traffic.
when are they starting?
I think it's September.
It's not gonna be, yeah, and it's not gonna, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not gonna be closed overnight, so they're gonna, you know, they're gonna try and be open for commuting hours. They're also they're well aware of the bus schedules, so they're gonna work with the
I was gonna
buses.
ask that, schools are aware of it?
And they're well aware of that, you know, if they're gonna have details on the site, so they'll be, you know, they're prepared for ambulance runs or fire trucks, if need be, so those types of things, but there will be days when, you know, regular traffic won't be able to get through, while they're working, and then they'll cover everything up at night so that, you know, either plate it or refill, so that you can get through it during the evening and night hours.
Comments?
None. Sounds good.
We haven't had you in for a while, but you've been very busy and done a lot of work, and you guys have worked hard. Thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, very noticeable. It was a tough year. Roads were among the worst we've seen in a long time.
Still pretty bad.
That's some,
No, it's-
somebody's phone.
Got me. Any, Kevin? Any?
Nothing else.
Jack,
Thanks very much,
anything?
Bob.
Yeah,
You gonna hang around?
I'll be here, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's see, let's get rid of the warrants, shall we? I think I approved all three of these, and did you get one of them, Kevin?
I don't believe so. I believe it was
Okay, I think I had all three of them. I move to approve the following warrants. July 24th, 2018, in the amount of $971,342.92. July 31st, in the amount of $152,935.67. And on August 8th, in the amount of $1,748,908.13. I signed those warrants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Jack?
We had a request for the Lakeland Farms project. You know, we had an original request, and this is the revision. It's been approved by both chiefs as well as the applicant to name the street within Lakeland Farms Cleary Circle.
Cleary Circle or Cleary Way?
Cleary Circle, sorry, it's, there was a last minute change to that.
Was it Betsy that came up with that?
It was Betsy, she beat me.
What a
Yes.
great suggestion. Helen Cleary, most people probably know, but some may not. Helen Cleary unfortunately passed away about a year or so ago. She was the first woman selectman in the town of Norfolk, an incredible lady. And I think it's very appropriate that we name a street in her honor. A great choice,
Yeah, and a veteran.
and a veteran. Yeah. Do I have a motion?
I move to name, I don't know if it is a street, but I move that we utilize Cleary Circle for the street name in Lakeland Farms project.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This was just one of 3 possible roads that required naming, correct?
I think they're gonna name the whole connection
Oh,
within
okay,
there.
perfect.
Even better.
Yep.
Yep.
And I believe we have representatives of the fire department here to talk about the Norfolk Fire Autism 5K that they have proposed. We have Kate Howarth with us.
Welcome. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
We just have a request for a one-day liquor license. We're having a 5K run to raise money for both autism awareness and our union, kind of like doing a dual run. And that's gonna be right here in the center of town. We're using the same route that the Dare run uses. I've gone through the deputy chief of police, and they're doing the route and making sure we have everything squared away for that. And then after the run, we have a food truck and we're trying to get approval for the beer tent, just to have beer. It's a brewery that's doing it, or that we're requesting to do it. So his plan was just to set up a tent and have like a craft beer. It will just be like keg type beer. And I have his brewery license and this. I only brought one copy.
Thank you.
Approval.
Do we have copies of these? No?
I don't. Sue might have them up in the office. I don't. But
And his brewery is out of Weymouth. I didn't know what else I needed for approval.
Well, first, thank you guys for doing this. Autism, I believe, is the primary cause, and very worthwhile. So,
Yeah,
Thanks
I
for
think
doing
it's
that.
overlooked a little.
and thanks for all that you do. We do approve one-day licenses we've done it for the Grange and the Lions, and
Okay.
so it's routine. The only question I have is that, just to be sure that whoever is serving
Yep.
this has all the tip requirements, and make sure that they're fully trained, and making sure that we
Yep.
don't have any underage issues or anything like that, so.
No, and I
And I
spoke
would
with.
assume that he would have that, but
we'll work
but
with
if he could
Okay.
provide us that certification prior to the date, that would be great.
Okay. Yep. And then I talked to Glenn Eichel too, and he said he would come and do karting or whatever, just to make sure we don't have any issues with that as well.
Well, no one will argue with Glenn, that's for
Right.
sure.
That's for sure.
It's probably pretty safe right there. Yeah.
Kevin, any?
Nothing from me, sounds great.
Okay.
Great, no, thanks a lot, and good luck
Thank
with
you.
it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I was
Well, we
hoping
need to approve
that
it. Yeah, hold on, don't go away.
I was just hoping that the selectmen would waive the license fee of $25.
We have done that for the Lions and other organizations as well, so. Kevin, the motion?
I move to approve a one-day beer license for the Norfolk Fire Autism 5K that will be held on Sunday, August 26, 2018, and also to waive the, you wanted the time in there?
Waive the fee and just, 10:30 to 5.
To waive the fee, and the event will be from 10:30 to 5 p.m. How's that for a long motion?
Great. I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Jack.
Residents from 24 Bridie Lane, are they here?
No, I don't, he said he wasn't coming, so
Okay.
he did, well, if you wanna ask if there's people here for some other reason.
Well, you had a chance to read through it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll start with you. Your turn.
To go through any questions, or?
Well, he's requested an abatement, I guess is the best way to say it.
So
of-
perhaps-
of bill. As I understand it, there was leaking toilets or something in the house, but it was in the house, it was on his property, and the water was used. he's looking for an abatement on that bill because it was, well, actually, I can't come up with a reason, to be honest with you.
So I did see the copies of his usage bills, his water bill. I did see some scribbled notes on there, but I couldn't really make them out. And I did see the graph charts that identified usage over the course of time. So the few things I could pick out of that is that it wasn't normal usage. It was in excess of, you know, and it was one-time instance or a period instance. But I think my biggest question is, have we had something like this come before us before, and how did we address it at that point?
I can only speak to my tenure. We have had situations where there have been leakages and things of that nature. We would distinguish between what was our problem and what we owned, if you will, in terms of that issue versus what the homeowner would own. I know of no instance where we have waived the fee for the use of the water that occurred in the individual's home. We have waived the penalties if the bills were paid in a prompt fashion. I know there's a precedent for that, but I don't, Jack, do you? I don't know of any precedent that.
No, we've had people leave hoses on and have other instances, and we haven't waived it, and I think the rationale was that it's not like you're just taking this money, you know, that the general fund is writing this off. It's the water enterprise fund, which is really made up of the other water users. So the thought process, at least in the past, has been, is it fair to the other water users if one person has a faulty system? Do you penalize everybody for the issues that one person has? Thought process in the past has been no, that you don't.
And was there a specific request in the amount of an abatement or the rate to be applied?
I believe all this data was here just to show us that his bill was unusually high, and he'd like to have his bill back at his usual.
Al, do you know any more history on this?
Sure, I could give it.
Grab the microphone and
Either
fill
come
us
up-
in.
Come up with a seat, or
Okay, I'll just explain a little bit on what happens throughout the town. We've had several instances over the years of people leaving water on, their hoses running, toilets running. A lot of residents don't believe that a toilet can actually put out 2,000 to 3,000 gallons over a 24-hour period, just running. This one here, I did look over. I look over all of them, and I call the residents. I speak to them, explain what the situation is, what I see is happening. This was leaky toilets. The gentleman explained to me he had 2 leaky toilets. We set our criticals at 1,000 gallons a day per house. So once you go over 1,000 gallons, it comes right to my desk. If I see this periodic over the weekend or 3 days in a row, I make a courtesy call to the homeowner and let them know you have something in the house toilet running. They usually laugh and say, "How do you know my toilet was running?" Because I fixed it yesterday. But anyway, on this instance here, on the charts you see, September, October, November-ish, he had no problems. In November, December, there was a couple spikes. And then at the end of December, I want to say, I don't have them in front of me, but then it gradually just got worse. Because it was under 1,000 a day, I wasn't catching it, I can't be babysitting. We have 2,500 residents in town services, so I can't, I do the best I can to oversee this. I did call the resident, explain to him what I saw, what I feel happened. He got his bill in April, I want to say the first week of April, he got his bill. He called concerned. I got all the paperwork together and explained to him what I could see happening. He explained to me he had 2 toilets. I believe it was 2 toilets that were running. I spoke to him on, say, the 13th of April, 14th of April. On the 16th of April, his flow dropped from 8,000 gallons a day, 1,200 a day, down to 200 and under. So the event was fixed, whatever was going on. That's where we're at. My opinion is we've had many other residents that have had the same issue. They get a little upset with me when I tell them that the selectmen are not going to give you an abatement. You can try if you'd like, but you're not going to succeed because it was a toilet running, and we have no control over your toilets in your home. We don't live there. So that's where we're at. And, you know, on this one here, I've spoke to Jack about it, I've spoke to Bob. You know, it's clear cut. There was a toilet running or two, and we, you know, if we were to give an abatement on this, we're gonna have a lot more people coming down the road asking, well, you gave that guy an abatement, why can't I get one? And we just don't do that. Unless it's something physically we see. I just had a 86-year-old woman. She turned the water on outside her house to a garden reel. Last winter when it's cold, it froze, it was frozen. She neglected to shut the valve back off. 3 days later, we had 80, 90-degree weather. I saw over the weekend 4,000 gallons a day going through her house. We went over there, and lo and behold, the reel had thawed, and the garden hose was running out in her backyard, and she would have never known it. So luckily, we have this sophisticated system in place in the town of Norfolk. A lot of towns don't have that. That hose would have ran for 3 months if I didn't catch it, you know, when we did. So that's where I'm at, Jim, and, you know, this, I've gone over it with the resident and his brother also, and, you know, that's where I'm at with that. So you can make your decisions upon that. I would recommend giving a abatement because of the fact that we've had other residents that had to pay their bill, and it was much higher than that bill that you're looking at.
We have waived the late fees, I believe, have we not?
That we could do, I believe, when he called in, so he has put his, you know, so I would waive the penalties or late fees. But as far as the initial bill, I mean, he's responsible for that, and, you know, he knew the toilets were running, because he told me they were. So, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, yes, I would waive the late fees because he did call in, he did make a notice that he wanted us to look into it. Other than that, you know, it's just the way we do things.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
I mean, given the past precedent, I don't think that we want to start setting a new course now. But I would suggest that we remove the arrears, interest, and demand, as noted, right?
Okay, would you like to make that a motion?
Sure.
I think the motion would only have to pertain to the waiving of the penalties and fees.
Okay, so I move to waive the penalties and fees associated with the water bill for the resident at 24 Bridie Lane.
I will second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have directional signs for Jane and Paul's Farm, 4 Kicks and Cable Land. In your packet.
This is the same as usual?
It is. There.
Yep.
We should have some for, probably have them next meeting for Dunkin' Donuts and, yeah.
All at once or individually?
Whatever works for you. I would do them all at once if I were you.
I move to approve the renewals for directional signs at Jane and Paul's Farm, 4 Kicks, and Cable Land.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Say that the corn is in prime season right now.
Oh, it is good.
And then we have a liquor license, one-day liquor license for a dance held at the Grange on September 22nd, 2018. Well, I don't think any of those folks are here, no. But there is information in your packet from Cindy Ledoux. They're having a dance, this is the Grange putting it on. They expect 60 to 90 people. There's no entrance fee being charged. They will be serving liquor. They will be catered, the liquor will be catered by Basil's from Medfield, which they've done before at that location. And he will be tip trained. He is tip trained. And Basil's will bring the liquor in appropriately.
Okay, any questions?
No. I
None for me.
move to approve the one-day liquor license for what's the event called? Sorry, I didn't see that.
Just calling it a dance.
A dance at the Grange on September 22nd, 2018.
Second. Just a question, whose name is the license in?
I believe it'll be in the Grange's
Ranger's name, okay.
Is that right?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We missed the clerical unions contract, Jack.
We did, intentionally though, because we're gonna get together tomorrow and try and, the union hasn't voted that yet, and we're gonna get
I miss-
together one more, we're gonna defer that for hopefully just one more meeting.
How does, the new Supreme Court ruling?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court ruling says that employees that are, short version is employees that are within unions doing union work, in the past, they didn't have to belong to the union, but they still had to pay an administrative fee, which was similar to the union dues. The new Supreme Court ruling says they don't have to join the union, nor do they have to pay the fee. So there's a lot of debate going on. I know the city councilors, the attorneys for municipalities are having some discussions about how that is gonna play out. You know, what's gonna happen with when somebody who isn't paying dues, if they grieve something that's, are they gonna benefit from the union contract for one thing? Are they gonna be able to grieve things that are within the union contract? It's a very interesting decision that came down, so.
And I think we've had one employee already opt out.
We've had one employee opt out, and we've gotten guidance that, you know, we need to make sure that all the employees who are in the unions, they have given us something in writing that says they want their fee taken out, which we already had in place, so we're covered there. But yeah, we've had one person who's within one of our unions that said they don't want to be in the union anymore, nor do they want to pay the dues, so. There's a lot of, you know, some of the other interesting thing, you and I had discussions, so I
We
know
had a
you know.
long
sort of,
conversation
but
about
yeah,
it. It's, yeah, the teachers' contracts, I can see this being
yeah, there's bumping rights that come
Yeah.
into play, and.
mostly the bumping rights,
Yeah.
Yep.
It'll be interesting.
very. So there hasn't been any further clarification?
No, not yet. I was supposed to receive some stuff from Murphy Hess, but I haven't gotten that yet. And we haven't any other activity by employees, so that's probably a good thing for now. But it'll be interesting.
Okay.
Just, you know, a lot of different theories in place. Some unions may struggle.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna defer that.
And then we were gonna ask you to please consider opening the public comment period for residents to have an opportunity to participate by letter or email to express their comments within respect to the water, solid waste, and cemetery rates. The period will stays open till the end of December, is that right?
December 12th.
December 12th, and then we'll have the hearings to set the rates in late December and January.
Yeah, it's usually January.
Yeah. So this is required from our DPW home rule legislation back 12, 13 years ago, that we open up this public comment period. You know, it's pretty much always public comment period, but this is the official public comment period for people who want to comment on water rates or waste rates.
Okay, do I have a motion to do so?
I move to open the public comment period for residents to comment on water, solid waste, and cemetery rates.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Our meeting is set for, that was 10 days early, November 27th.
Correct.
Yeah, you know what we don't have in your packet is I know Sue put together the timeline for that, and unless I lumped it in with one of my other packets here.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, okay, so, we could, but it'll be the typical timeline. We will,
When will the warrant close? Do we know that date?
it'll have to be right after Labor Day in order to go through the advisory board process.
So that only leaves us 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Do you know of any articles at this point, other than the usual transfers and things of that nature?
only financial so far. The only other thing we've had is we had we had the 2 petitions at the last town meeting. That's on our agenda to talk about the ad hoc committees, about whether or not we want to put the committee together to consider those going forward. But I haven't heard of any. Rich was here, right? Yeah, Rich, any zoning articles for the fall?
Yes.
Okay, we have some zoning articles for the fall.
We have to, we're working with Bob to take care of the, updating the aquifer protection map for the new Boardman Street well. We're gonna update our zoning bylaw based on DEP comments and stuff.
Okay. And you have some transfers?
There will be, I'm sure there'll be some transfers, I don't,
So 2 things that we need to think through.
and capital. I know we didn't have any capital in the spring vehicles, so I'm thinking, we would certainly look at police, probably 2 cruisers.
In the fall or the spring?
Well, we didn't do it last spring, so I was thinking we would do it this fall. We could talk about timing of that, but we need to purchase a vehicle for the building inspector. His vehicle will not pass. We've been informed it will not pass inspection again. That's a 2003, so I'm not really all that surprised that
What else? So we have 2 potential funding requests. We have now is the Energy Committee looking to do a November request, or are they looking to do a fall, spring request?
fall, my understanding is a fall
Okay,
request.
so we've got the energy request, and now we've got potentially something for Highland Lake.
And we may, and at some point, I'm not sure if it's gonna be fall or spring, we're gonna have to look at the, probably won't be until spring, the H. Olive Day roof. I think I'm not sure the architects will be able to go out to do all their work before the fall, but
We still haven't gotten the money from the state?
no. Talked to
Are we
Mr.
ever gonna
Hassett.
get the money from the state?
Yeah. I'm not gonna speak for the MSBA, no.
Hmm?
I'm not gonna speak for the MSBA.
The audit's complete, right?
Oh, yeah. My understanding was they pushed it from they have a quarterly May meeting. Todd Hassett from the school told me they promised him that it would be on the agenda for the May board meeting, and they, for some reason, didn't have it, so now it's on for the August board meeting, so.
I mean, that's over $900,000.
Yep.
Okay. What else might be on that agenda? Anything? We have to close the snow and ice.
Yeah, we closed most of that in the, Todd was able to do a lot through the transfers to close quite a bit of that.
How much is left?
I wanna say $50,000?
Wow, he did close a lot.
Yeah.
Good for him. Kevin, any on town meeting, anything?
Nothing from me.
Jack, any?
Mind, can I just grab the mic a second?
I'm not sure of the, Hope that's working, okay. I'm not sure of the amount, but we could be bringing to your attention some funds needed for stormwater MS4 in this fall town meeting. Right now, we're gonna contract with environmental partners for an NOI that we'll be filing. And we have on board Jim, the assistant director, who's come to us from Beta, who's very familiar with MS4 permitting. And this is going, this is in the state of Massachusetts. So I'm not sure of the funding that we'll need, but it wouldn't surprise me if we were asking for 50 or 100,000. I just don't know right now. I'm thinking that maybe we could get by with what we can do in-house until the Springtown meeting.
Do you know of any other requests that are gonna be on free cash?
No, no, vehicles, HL day roof, no, I think we're gonna have to still get more information from the public safety project. As you know, that hasn't been the cleanest project as far as issues we've had with the architect and differences of opinion between the architect and the general contractor. So, while we have enough money in the project, there's a contingency that for both the police station project and the fire station project that we're trying to make sure we leave enough in that contingency for the fire station project. As you have heard on several occasions, it's been a difficult project, and both school projects we've done have come in significantly under budget. This is the first one that I won't be able to say we came in significantly under budget.
We did get good news on that today, though. Septic system.
All right, we were able to get the paperwork done on the septic system, so we can get working on that project.
The septic system, do you know the background on that, Kevin?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did a nice walkthrough with Matt on Friday of last week. So he was able to explain to me everything surrounding that and the other aspects of the building, so very informative.
Well, we got the signed documents in today,
Yeah.
so. I mean, we anticipated we'd get them, but until they're on your desk, you never know.
Right.
So that was good news.
That was good news.
Okay, so, and Todd hasn't disclosed the free cash number yet, huh?
He is not, no. I will ask him. He's probably getting pretty close to having a good, solid estimate. He was probably pretty close to submitting that, so
Yeah.
if I put the screws to him, he'll give it to me.
Well, Eric has arrived. We just need the chiefs.
You want to talk about, I know, I assume Jonathan is here to talk about ad hoc committees. Do you want to talk about?
Jonathan, I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. You, come on up.
It's been 10 years.
How quickly time flies. Amazingly enough, we're still all here, huh?
Still all here.
Nice to see you.
Well, I saw the word ad hoc on the agenda, so I came over. And that's all, I just saw the words ad hoc. And I wasn't sure exactly what it was about, but
Well,
You
Kevin,
had
you
in
jump in
mind.
on this, but you brought it up, Jack. Town meeting did ask us to continue to research the two petitions, if I recall, certainly one of them, which was the recall.
Yeah, I think,
We have an obligation to do that.
yeah, and I
I
think,
think we both agree on that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
and I think also the town meeting,
The-
Town Government Study Committee was the other.
Right.
Probably the one Jonathan's interested in.
Yes.
You would love to serve on that, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, I would.
Personally, speaking for me, I'd love to have you. I mean, you've got the experience and you know how the system works. You were a selectman. I think it'd be very helpful to have you on that committee. We haven't nominated anybody at this point in time. We're still gathering names, but yours has been on the list from day one.
Oh, thank you.
So I think one of the things Kevin and I talked about was trying to get some people, or, you know, internal or volunteers, to try and put together some, a framework, I guess, for the purpose of the committee.
Correct.
So I think that was where we, you know, where we need to get going on. I was thinking Anthony Turry, the Assistant Town Clerk, and I could probably get started on the Town Government Study Committee. Of course, we're always willing to have some other people, anyone who wants to help with that. That
If
would
you
be
know
good.
some folks that you think would be good, Kevin,
Jonathan?
Jonathan, we would certainly welcome that input too.
Okay.
Maybe some people, I think we could use some folks that were not part of town government as well as part of town government. So. Were you part of the old charter committee back in the 90s?
No, I was on the advisory board then.
Okay.
But I wasn't, I tried to be a lead person on abolishing the permanent building committee. I remember we had quite a discussion about that.
That we did, yeah.
And some other things that the town's done when we had when we tried to combine the library with the schools.
Well,
And
we
have
did,
one
we did,
library.
we did do
We
that.
did to a certain extent, but we didn't
Yeah.
formalize it as a permanent thing in any.
And we should have. Yeah. Agreed. That was a good program.
So things like that.
Yeah.
And I was in town government for 20 years, but I've been out for 10, so hopefully that doesn't mean that I'm
You're
considered
cleansed.
an insider
You're
anymore.
cleansed.
You're cleansed, yes. In that, so I've seen it from both sides now.
Yeah. Well, let's get the framework written, try and get it done by our next meeting.
Okay.
And get it out for volunteers and get going. I also see Chief Stone has arrived, so. I think we, okay. So
Good.
Jonathan, thanks.
Okay.
Nice to see you. You wanna hang around?
Yeah, I'll hang around for a little while.
Nice to see you. Okay.
So the other ad hocs were the two, I think more so the one about the petition, the recall provision. Whether or
Right.
not we were gonna put together a committee to consider if we wanted to reconsider that.
Rework it or forget it, take whatever they'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the end of the conversation at town meeting, was that, you know, there certainly was, parts of town meeting thought there was some validity to that discussion. So,
Okay.
do we wanna create, you know, it's up to the board, do you wanna create an ad hoc committee to go down that path? That's,
Well, I think town meeting told us to do that, so I think we have an obligation to do it. They're the boss, so, yeah, we need to do that. I've got 2 or 3 names that I will give you, and ironically, I mentioned them to Jack. I think you and I have the same name. So, non-governmental person. Well, Kate,
No.
yeah, I think she'd be terrific. Not sure she's willing to do it, whether she has the time to do it, but she'd be great if she could.
She's expressed to me that she does not, but maybe that'll change coming from somebody else.
Oh, did you ask her?
I did.
And she said no?
She did.
glad we've had this conversation.
Ah, okay. I hadn't asked her. I won't ask then, okay. She'll say no to me too. All right, so we have folks that have been very patient to wait for Lawrence Street Bridge conversation, so.
So sorry to interrupt, but just to wrap that up. So the idea is that we are absolutely going to fill these committees, but we just need to put some framework out there for the one pertaining to the town government study,
Framework for both of them,
for both of them.
yeah.
Okay, and we have individuals identified as to who would be putting that together on both ends, or is it?
I hadn't volunteered for the second one, but I will if you tell me I'm gonna volunteer for that.
Do you want to volunteer for that?
Sure.
I think the way it was referenced during town meeting was a bylaw review committee of some
Yeah,
sort, right? And-
I'll own that one for you.
Okay.
I'll put some framework around it for our September 5th, I think it is, which is coming up in 2 weeks, 5th, 4th, whatever it was. I'll put some framework around that for consideration. We'll get out in advance of the meeting so you can comment back, and we'll see if we can finalize that.
Great. I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, nope, agreed.
Appreciate it.
We gotta get it done.
So are we meeting on the 28th? Is this the only meeting, this is the only meeting?
September, I said.
You did, I was just,
Yeah, we've got a meeting on the 4th.
The 11th and the 18th.
well, the 11th is just a,
That's an
meeting.
all-town meeting.
Yeah.
That's where the other
Plainville
selectmen
and
are.
Rentham, and we're
One
gonna meet.
representative is coming in from the Board of Selectmen. It's not a quorum meeting to.
Oh, no, it is,
Oh, this is gonna
it's
be a
intended to
quorum?
be a quorum meeting.
Oh, so
yeah.
all of them are coming?
Oh, yeah.
Where are we gonna put them?
Oh,
It's around the budgeting process for Kingfil,
well, and yes.
and to meet the new
And meet the
superintendent.
new superintendent is the
Yeah.
main thing.
Last year, Plainville hosted that. This year, we're hosting it.
It's 4th and the 18th.
Correct.
Yep.
And you said goals we're gonna put off until,
Until
Jeff's here?
Jeff's here, yeah.
Makes sense.
Chief, welcome. Chiefs, welcome. John, thank you for joining us. Eric? So, just as some background. We know that this is something that is of great interest to folks, so just for some background. What we're here to talk about tonight is the bridge and the causeway. That is the only issue that is before this board. We have read the LSP report in detail. I think you've read it, had a chance to read it. There are some very serious concerns there, but they are not relevant to the bridge and the causeway. Just as some background, road repairs, bridges, things of that nature are not public hearing items. We do this stuff all the time. Only on one other occasion that I'm aware of where we involved residents in a discussion on a road was Lake Street. The reason we did that is that Lake Street, if you know it, is very unique and really only traveled by the people that live there. And we felt that they should have some say in what we could or could not do on that road. That was almost 5 years ago. We still haven't been able to come to a conclusion to fix that road. We opened up the process of discussion here because of the sensitivity of what's going on up in that area. There are two major developments, and we wanted to allow for that input here. There's been a lot of input on it. There have been 4 Board of Selectmen meetings, there've been a planning board meeting, there's been conservation meetings, all on the bridge and the causeway. So there's been a lot of input. There is a limited amount of input in terms of what we can and cannot alter. For example, all design work has to meet DOT standards. We don't get to negotiate that. Items that we can talk about and have talked about in all of these various boards were width of road, design of the sidewalk, things of that nature. And that input has all been taken into account and was integrated as best we could into what the bid specs are. The bids arrived on 7th of August?
Bid opening was July 26th.
I don't know why I'm in August. July 26th. I did come to that. We received 5 bids. And Eric, I'm going to ask you to come forward and talk about those, if you would, please.
Anywhere in particular you want to sit up?
Just, you, come on up, join us. Thanks for coming.
Sure.
Get into, there's
much detail or as little detail as you like.
Whatever these folks would like.
So, as you mentioned, there were 5 bidders on the project. In total, we had 10 plan holders, 5 of which submitted actual bids. The bids included a base bid for a certain scope of work, which included the reconstruction of the roadway, the repair of the bridge deck, and the construction of the cantilevered walkway and sidewalks on each side of the bridge. There was also an ad alternate in the bid, which included the work to take the overhead utilities and build the infrastructure necessary to relocate those overhead facilities below ground, including manholes and the necessary conduit to do that work. Of the 5 bidders, the bids ranged from, including the ad alternate work, which was inclusive of the conduit and manhole work I mentioned, the bids ranged from approximately $2.3 million, which was the low bidder of Mass Building and Bridge Incorporated, to the high bidder of roughly $2.9 million. And in there, we estimated the project to cost roughly $2.6 to $2.7 million. So the bids were fairly competitive. There was a wide range, but in all, the competitiveness was good. We reviewed the bids for any irregularities to make sure that they had the proper information submitted with their bid, including bid bonds, the proper paperwork. Everything seemed in order for the low bidder. We contacted the references that were provided by the low bidder. They received generally favorable reviews. We provided that information to the town as part of our overall submittal review package. And we found no irregularities in their bid and their bids. We go through and we review their bids to make sure all the math is correct and everything seemed to check out fine. And in looking through the bids, we did note a few items that were a little higher than what we would expect, and also a few items that were a little bit lower than we would expect. And we discussed those in the letter we provided. Nothing that seemed alarming that I can recall. And in the end, we suggested, or we recommended the town accept the low bid, as there was nothing there that seemed to be a disadvantage to the town to accept.
Okay. Kevin, questions?
None.
No, me either. Any questions on the bids from anyone in the audience? Please, grab the microphone.
Yes, Margaret Cahaley, Cranberry Meadow Road. I know at the last meeting you said that the footings on the bridge needed to be replaced and that he didn't mention that it was only the top of the bridge in these bid proposals. Just curious.
I don't
Did-
recall.
do they need
if
to
I did say
be?
that, I don't recall
Yeah.
it, but I could
Yeah,
very well
you
have.
said that it was a temporary fix that the town
We
had
did a
done in the,
Mr. McGee did a temporary fix.
Yes,
about
but
2-3
the-
years ago, Bob?
that they would need to be replaced again, but I didn't notice that in the scope of the work.
Yeah, so what the project includes in more detail in the bridge is the replacement of the bridge deck and repairs to the abutment, but not the abutment replacements, not the foundation replacement. The foundation, we did some testing on the abutments and found that the abutments themselves had the required capacity to withstand the loading that we would need, and with some minor repairs that we're proposing in the contract that was included.
Other questions on the bids? Okay.
Great.
In order to award a bid, we have to have the funding set aside. The exact amount, I believe, was $2,305,000.
305010.30.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah, so $2,305,010.30.
Our grants are $2,003,000, and Mr. McGee has $16,000 from the prior work that was done on the bridge set aside that has not been spent that we can reallocate to this bid. So we have the funding to award that low bid under the law. Do I have any other questions?
None from my end.
No, I think awarding, one thing we want to do, as you said, is award the bid, and then one
Well, we gotta-
discussion we want to have is about the
Awarding the
public
bid is
safety.
only the minor component here for discussion this
Yeah.
evening. There's a whole lot of discussion as to what that entails, so.
If you want, took the pleasure of writing something out if you want to go down that path.
My run-on sentence motions before were inadequate enough?
Now, that's a formal run-on sentence.
It's nice to have help, isn't it?
Yeah, seriously.
Sure.
Peggy Bedard, 28 Lawrence Street. Can you tell me what happens if there's change orders and there's add-ons?
What happened to the what?
If there are change orders and add-ons, what then happens?
Well, change orders first may or may not occur. We don't know that. We will have to put aside some additional money. Probably 10% of a project is what we normally set aside for projects like this, and we'll have to find other funding sources to do that. We're not required to do that to award the bid. There are different issues associated with that. But yes, I don't think I've ever seen a project that didn't have a change order.
We'll shoot for the first.
Pardon?
We'll shoot for this to be the first.
That would be great.
Anything else? No? All right, so we move to accept the bid for the Lawrence Street improvements, including the base bid, and add alternate to Mass Building and Bridges, including of Norfolk, Mass, in the amount of $2,305,010.30, and instruct the town administrator to enter into a contract between the town of Norfolk and Mass Building and Bridge Incorporated for that purpose.
I will second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now what happens?
There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be signed.
Well, I know that, and
They need to be issued a notice to proceed with a date on the notice to proceed. The date's actually a fairly critical element that sometimes can get overlooked. That is what kind of kicks off all the dates that are in the contract that they need to comply with. And at that point, the town should establish a pre-construction meeting to meet with the contractor to go over any questions, to review the contractor's schedule, which they should provide during that meeting, and also a schedule for submittals, which they typically provide at that meeting, to start discussing when things will start to occur, when they're going to mobilize, when the closure period starts, those sorts of things. So our next recommendation would be to arrange for that pre-construction meeting so that process can start, and also issue the notice to proceed to the contractor, assuming all the contract documents are properly obtained.
okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Chief, can we talk about the public safety issues associated with this? Come join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chuck, you just couldn't do it, could you?
What's that?
Just couldn't do it, could you? I told Chief Stoney.
Floor is yours, gentlemen.
I defer to the elder statesman here.
You mean the guy with the gun?
Happen to know I'm the younger one. Okay, so obviously one of the concern for the residents that are on the other side of the bridge is that whether or not you're going to have public safety response. And the answer to that is yes, definitely. I've spoken to Chief Lynch from Franklin, and he's assured me that he has officers who will be able to respond to whatever call happens on the other side of the bridge. And they're well aware of it. They had a staff meeting today to discuss that. And then we will be coming right in behind whoever responds to the house that has a public safety issue. And as a result of that, we'll take over that call after we exchange a little bit of initial information between the officer that responded first and the officers from Norfolk who will go. Sometimes it may be that we're the one that get there first. We may be close enough that we even beat Franklin to that call, even though it's probably not likely. But I've done that route, the regular route that we would travel down Park Street, down Lawrence to that neighborhood, and find that it's probably about 5.5 minutes from the center roundabout at 40, 45 miles an hour, depending on where you can go that speed. As you know, we have blue lights and sirens and probably can move a little faster if we have to. we find that the other way is about 6 minutes to 6 minutes and 45 seconds, going up Chestnut to back down Mill in the back way. So do we feel like we can get to the call in a reasonable amount of time? Yes. There are not a large number of homes in that area, but certainly there will be a response from Norfolk Police. We don't find that we would have a very difficult time, especially with our good neighbors from Franklin. So Franklin's got a very good police department. If you read that Safeways Communities, they're rated very highly as a safe community also. Then that's partly because of their police department. So I don't have a problem with either one of us responding to any call in that area. So, about it. Anybody has a question?
Chief, do you have the PowerPoint on that?
Is that the one you want?
My goodness gracious, yes it is, thank you. Chief Stone laid out a little bit of logistics, but from our perspective, the fire department, we need two things. We need people and we need water. That makes our business operate. And we have a little problem in terms of overall staffing. We'll be back here at the next Selectmen's meeting to talk about that. But one of the things that you don't have in your area is this. We bring it with us on wheels, and certainly the construction of the bridge project is going to enhance our ability to provide fire protection there. Chief talked a little bit about the distances. Had a chance to run the distances the same way he did. Perhaps I drive a little faster. I think Jack would be glad to say that, I think. But we measured the distances from the Franklin Fire Department, our station, and then our station just going by Park and Lawrence Street. So if you look at Franklin, when they respond from their headquarters at 40 West Central Street to Brett's Farm, and we use that as just a general location to pick. It's 2.5 miles, about 4 to 5 minutes. We've had discussions with Franklin to provide mutual aid to that location. It would consist of an engine company. Their engine companies are staffed with 4 to 5 people and an ambulance. Their ambulance is the same as Norfolk's. They have ALS. So you have Franklin coming in at 2.5 miles in 4 to 5 minutes. If you go right to the bottom, our normal response coming in by Park and Lawrence is 3.2 miles in about 5 minutes. So overall, Franklin will be giving you a bigger bang for your buck. You're going to get more people, and they're going to get there probably about the same time, but less travel distance. We'll be coming in behind them, just as Chief Stone indicated, for the police department, and our distance will be about 4.4 miles, and that's going to be about 6 to 7 minutes. And that's the driving. But I wanted to make sure to take another look at it. If we could have the next slide, please. We use MapQuest, and by just going through the MapQuest, the numbers are pretty close again. If you look at our travel distance from the station going by Mill Street, it's a little bit longer on MapQuest, and again, MapQuest is using a different miles per hour reading. But overall, MapQuest kind of validates what we're talking about an overall response. As I said, Franklin will be available for that response. We'll be coming in behind them. We anticipate in the event of a medical emergency, they will initiate patient care. We'll probably take the transport from there. In a fire situation, they'll be coming in with that engine company. You also should know that in your particular area of town, because it lacks hydrants, we have automatic mutual aid set up with the Medway Fire Department. Then on a first alarm response starts out with a tanker. That truck carries an additional 3,000 gallons of water. So it's an area of town that we're very keen on in terms of overall fire protection. I think the other thing to realize too in terms of medical emergencies there, a couple of weeks ago we had an opportunity at about 1-2 o'clock in the morning to provide assistance for a party involving a group of youths. We transported 2 of them. One was an injury to a leg, and another one was another type of injury that we transported. So we've been there quite a bit in terms of lately. We had a gentleman that was involved in doing some cleaning in a home. We transported him from his exposure to some chemicals. We had mutual aid come in to assist us in mitigating the problem at a second home that he was cleaning in. But overall, the numbers that we showed you last year about this time run true to just about what they've been overall. I mean, if you look at Lawrence Street, Brett's Farm, Cranberry Meadow, Ego Drive, from January of 2006 to this year, August of 2008, EMS total calls for that area, just under 50 for ambulance calls. We've had about 10 motor vehicle accidents in the area. We've had, fortunately, knock on wood, very few fires, mostly chimney fires. So what we have in that area is a low volume in terms of overall responses for the fire department. I'm exceedingly confident that the ability of Franklin to get their apparatus out and to provide a timely assist will certainly mirror the service that you're receiving already from Norfolk coming out of the Main Street station. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Any questions?
Peggy Bedard, 28 Lawrence Street. Where do our calls get directed when we call 911? Is it going to Norfolk or is it going to go to Franklin?
It's gonna go to the Norfolk.
And how do they get redirected and how long does that take?
Seconds, or is it gonna call over the air and then tell them they have a call?
Okay.
Be simultaneous dispatch, basically, on the fire side, I'm sure, police be the same. If someone from the area calls for 911 for emergency medical assistance or fire, the call will be processed by the Norfolk communication technician. We'll be dispatched. While we're being dispatched, Franklin will be notified at the same time. Franklin will switch over to our frequency once they are dispatched.
So they're dispatched at the exact same time for the fire?
It'll be pretty close. It'll depend on the Franklin call processing system once they have the information.
Could we find that out? I mean,
It would be infinitesimally small and insignificant. I can assure you of that.
so a couple of other things. So is the water being brought by Franklin or Medway? I heard you mention Medway.
Medway is a support service to us. So when we respond, we come with 1,000 gallons of water on the first engine. Franklin, because they're more of a urban type environment in terms of their overall response, their engine will come with 750 gallons of water. Because it's a non-hydrated area, we want to ensure that we have water on wheels rolling immediately. So that's why Medway is started. We have a tanker which carries 3,000 gallons of water as well, but you need staffing to pick that up. Our staff is concentrated on the first due engine that will respond engine 2, as I said, with 1,000 gallons of water. So we make sure that in all areas of town where we don't have hydrants available, that there's a minimum of 3,000 gallons of water on wheels responding on the initial alarm.
We have 3,000 gallons in Norfolk,
Sure do.
and Franklin has 750 gallons.
On their piece of apparatus that responds, that's correct.
How long will it take for them to get from Medway to Norfolk?
I imagine it takes them a little bit. I couldn't define that for you in terms of mileage nor in terms of overall response time. You have to remember a tanker truck is probably one of the heaviest pieces of fire apparatus that traverses the road. Being a tandem axle, you can't move that piece of apparatus as quickly as you would an engine company.
So how long will 750 gallons last? Will it be a long time? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out.
No,
Cole, but I think there's some confusion there. When our tanker that has 3,000 gallons doesn't respond in the initial call because our firefighters are on the engine, right?
Right, that's correct.
So the Franklin water is still going to be as it is today. Franklin water or Medway water is still going to be the first water on site because our tanker, our four firefighters that are in the station today are on the engine. The tanker doesn't run until people come back to the station when we have callbacks.
And I think the one thing you're getting now is you're getting an additional 750 gallons of water with an additional 5 firefighters on the initial alarm that you wouldn't get now coming out of Main Street. That's why I said earlier, you're getting a bigger bang for your buck.
It's kind of frightening me a little bit. I probably didn't want to know that.
Well, that's why we want to bring water down to this area, so there are fire hydrants down there.
Right, but the other question I have is, I was told that the water's only gonna go as far as the bridge, so I'm not really sure how we get the water from the bridge to my house. That's pretty
I
far.
think the plan is to go all the way down to the Franklin line.
That's not what was said at a previous meeting.
Well, I know
Actually, it was the previous meeting to this, for the
there are
selectmen's.
there are multiple phases. You know, Rich can talk about how the planning board has approved the Cranberry Heights subdivision, and they've put a requirement in there that developer is gonna pay for water to continue down Lawrence Street. So it's not necessarily part of this project, but once we get the water across Lawrence Street, then we can continue all the way to Brett's Farm and all the way to the Lawrence line, or the Franklin line.
How long do you anticipate that taking?
I don't have a schedule in front of me. I can't answer that today.
Okay. And then the only other thing is, Chief Stone, I'm a person who hears things, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but you said there aren't many houses there, but the houses that are there are important to all of us. I mean, I know you didn't mean it the way, but you might want to think about when you phrase that.
I'm guessing it's ballpark 25 houses
Mhm.
up in that area.
There's more than that, but
Yeah, but that's why I said ballpark. And as
Yeah.
a result of that, we're gonna get someone to your emergency call, whenever it is, and wherever it is.
That's fine.
As quickly as we can.
I'm just saying that's probably something you want to not say in the future, because it's about 50 houses, and my house matters to me, and the people in it matter to me.
Yeah, and they matter to us too, so.
I understand.
Now, I just want to reinforce and back up my colleague, Chief Stone. I'm sure he meant nothing, regarding that, so.
We understand. We get your comment. I understand.
Please.
Yes, Margaret Haley, Cranberry Meadow Road again. And it's probably not a specific, but do we have a time frame? I mean, we keep saying the bridge is gonna be closed, but nobody has told us a week, 3 months.
Eric, can you help us with that at all?
Just grab a mic so people on the TV can hear you.
So without the notice to proceed, it all kind of starts with the notice to proceed. Once that is issued, the contractor can then mobilize. So we don't have the contractor's schedule of when they anticipate to mobilize and when they intend to close the roadway. When they do close the roadway, there's a 90-day limit on how long that roadway can be closed. And then after that, there's a substantial completion date in the contract, and I can't recall off the top of my head what that date is, but it's sometime, I think, in June of next year, when the total project should be finished by.
So they can't be closed for more than 90 days?
That's
you're saying?
correct.
And is that at a time, or is that?
90 consecutive days.
Okay, so they
So
can close it for 90 and then do another 60?
And then they can't close it anymore.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I mean, they're moving a big piece of equipment, they may need to shut the road down for 5 minutes to move that equipment, but it's not gonna be, or a half a day, but it's not gonna be consecutive nights and days where the road can be closed, and that's not gonna be allowed after the 90 days.
Peggy Bedard, 28 Lawrence Street. I just want to understand this. So it's closed for 90 days. There's no plus minus. That's the limit.
That is the maximum amount of time that you can close
Hey,
the
Eric,
road.
why don't you come up here, and then you'll have a mic, and then you don't have to pass this all back and forth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the way the contract is worded is that they're limited, they can close the road for no longer than 90 days. They could only close it for 30 if they chose, but they can close it for no longer than 90 days.
What happens if it goes beyond 90 days?
Then the town has the right to receive damages from the contractor for that.
Big incentive, hopefully.
It's an incentive, yeah.
What's the damages? Do we know that? I mean,
Offhand, I do not know that number offhand.
could we get that?
Yeah, sure, the contract is public record, we can get that, sure.
That'd be great. When is this anticipated to start?
As I mentioned before, the notice to proceed has to be issued, so they can't start before that happens. Typically, I understand this contractor is a little anxious to get started, which is good news for everybody. There's a lot of paperwork that has to happen in terms of getting some of the materials and equipment approved for use on the job before they can start some of that work. So without the benefit of the contractor's schedule, I can't tell you a specific date, but I would guess they'd probably start work within a month. physical boots on the ground within a month or so. And the road closure, I have less of a handle on when they might actually start closing the road. I don't know.
So this is going to go into December?
It may.
I thought we were talking about making sure this was something that was done when the kids weren't at school because of the school buses, because that's a long ride to the schools from this neighborhood. I mean, I remember my sons complaining bitterly about the ride. I thought we were talking about waiting until kids weren't in school.
I think that was something that was a goal originally, but given the project schedule and the way that progress progressed, that wasn't, I think by the time the project was out for advertisement, and the actual bids were opened, it was determined that that probably wasn't going to be possible.
So is
My
this going to be a total bridge closure, or is there going to be one lane open?
So the 90-day period is a total road closure.
Okay.
Other questions?
Hi, Sandy Myatt, Eric Road. So just to follow up on that, is anybody going to talk with the schools on bus routes and maybe get a dedicated minibus for that area? We have KP, we have the junior high, the high school, they all, and the elementary schools. So, and, right, Tri-County. So maybe that's a different night of a discussion, but they usually get dropped off and then the bus goes up there. So somebody will have to organize.
Yeah, and they've already been notified, and they're usually part of the pre-construction meeting that Eric was speaking about, so they'll be involved in the whole planning process. And they'll obviously learn the timing of the bridge closure.
Other questions? I would certainly be open to having another public meeting once we've had that meeting where we know the specific timeframes and we have more detail. That would give more dates around this. I think we should hold another public meeting so that folks know that. Any feel for when that might be? Next 30 days?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I think we have a meeting kind of related to just to get to know each other a little bit tomorrow with the Mr. Sosi from the bridge company. That's not going to be the pre-construction
No,
meeting,
but
but we'll schedule the pre-construction meeting tomorrow.
Right, but I mean, these folks, they need to know specifics, and we
Yeah.
can't give that until after the pre-construction meeting is held. Might that be by the end of September?
The pre-construction meeting?
I would think it
No,
would
no,
be.
no. When could we hold a meeting for these folks to come in and hear the detail of exactly, more specifics around the timeframes of this? When might that happen, do you think?
Well, I think it would be contingent on the pre-construction meeting, and that I think can happen within the month and probably should happen within the month.
Okay,
So based on that timeline, I would say maybe the end of September would be reasonable.
so all right, so the 25th is a Tuesday? Might that be a target? I mean, I know it's variable, depending on when these meetings are all held, but I think it would be helpful to at least have a target date that you folks can come back and hear the specifics of this, so that you'll know exactly what the dates are and the timeframes. We'll have more detail after that meeting, correct?
I would expect, yeah.
I would expect,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry?
Just one final question.
Sure.
What happens if it snows? And, you know, I mean, we know how it snows around here. It's unpredictable and can be very large. How does they adhere to the 90-day schedule if we're in December?
Bridge construction can happen when it's cold. It's really temperature driven. The paving operations are something that is a concern and part of what will be discussed during the pre-construction meeting once we see what their schedule is to understand how they plan to attack the project.
I'm talking about those storms that, I mean, are unanticipated where it's taller than that desk, nearly as tall as me.
They can certainly work there in those conditions there. I mean, they may not work that day, but they'll clean the site. They own the site. They'll need to take care of the site, and they know that they have the 90-day limit. So I think it'll be up to them to make sure they adhere to that.
Okay. I'd really like to know what that fine is, because if it's not significant, isn't significant enough
Mhm.
to make it worth their while.
Right.
Thank you.
So we'll post another meeting, hopefully by the end of September, when we have the specific details, and Eric, if you would come back and go through it all.
Sure.
Any other questions for the chiefs? Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eric, thank you.
Rich, you were inspirational tonight.
Sorry, Rich. John, thank you for joining us as well. I don't think there are any questions for conservation, so.
Just have one more thing, I mean, not
Do you-
for the
do you
chiefs
need
or
them
anything.
here?
No, it's probably
Okay,
more for
all
you.
right.
No, just.
Okay.
No, Margaret Haley, Cranberry
Yeah.
Meadow again. So with this next meeting, we can hope to have answers on what the school bus schedule, the plowing schedules, how all of that's gonna pan out for us, the closure schedules.
Mr.
After
McGee,
they have a construction management meeting and.
technically, the DPW is in charge of the project.
Right,
technically.
just so, what
Right.
questions we'd like answered, that's,
No, and
heads up.
that's
So
why I'm suggesting
I don't
another.
wanna wait a month and ask about plowing, and then you go, I don't know, we'll tell you next month,
Well, I
let's-
don't think it's gonna snow in September,
No.
but it could.
It
It's New England.
absolutely
It
has.
could,
We-
no question.
Cancel
Yeah.
Halloween
No
before.
October.
You don't let the weather hang around a day. I remember a heavy blizzard on Thanksgiving Day.
Yes.
Yeah. As soon as we're in a position to have any firm information, we'll hold a meeting.
Okay.
I promise you. We want you to have all the information, but we also want it to be the right information.
That's
Yeah.
why I say, that,
Yeah.
like the questions out there.
Unfortunately, Margaret asked about Halloween. What about our power?
What about what?
Our power. How do we ensure we have power during this? Because our power now is fed from the direction of the bridge.
You're talking about the underground utilities?
No, I'm talking about during bridge construction. So our power comes from the direction of the bridge, right? That's where it comes from.
I believe it does.
So I guess I'm asking what happens while that bridge is being constructed?
I was above it, honey.
Bob, can you help with that?
The poles will remain.
The poles will remain.
Yeah, the poles will be there
Yeah.
this whole time. I think you can hear me, but then conduits laid across the bridge as part of the bridge
Mhm.
frame. So that, and then the underground conduit goes all the way through. And then all in one day's time, they'll sweep down from the poles, run the cables, fire up the electricity, so there's very little delay, if any notice at all. And then demolition of the poles.
Thank you.
When we bid this project, we bid it, Bob, Jack mentioned it, or Eric mentioned it, I've forgotten who, but we bid this in two pieces because we had originally hoped that the bid would contain both the causeway, the bridge, and the underground utilities, and we were very concerned that they would be way out of our price. So it was, I'll admit, Jack and I had the over on this, and we were quite surprised when the price came in. The bridge will work, the utilities, I believe, in this one was 170,
237, I think.
237. That's important. That was very important to us, to be able to get that stuff done, and be able to get that bridge capable of delivering water up the street. Where it goes from there, we'll work as fast as we can, and I don't think we have a time frame for that. But nothing happens if we don't get it across that bridge. Nothing. And it's just a personal view, having read that report, very significant concerns. I know John can probably comment it better than I can. But to me, it only heightened the need to be sure that we get the capability of getting water up there as fast as we can. So we're going to push that as fast as we can. But if we can't get it across the bridge, we can't get it to you. We're stuck. And the fire chief, we've had many conversations with the fire chief about that, and one of the things that he talked about was getting water up there. Well, he's pretty excited about hydrants, because it certainly makes it a lot easier for him in terms of, and all firefighters, in terms of any considerations that might happen up there.
There'll be no town water in Cranberry Meadow. The builder said he's not doing it.
I can't speak to that. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I was at the meeting. The builder said he can't afford to do it. He's coming up Eagle Drive. And in the other way and stopping before he gets to Cranberry Meadow, so.
You're on the planning board. Do you have any comments on that?
None. No, I don't recall him talking about any limitations to the water that he was running up
Yeah,
there.
they said that they wanted him to run a loop, and he said he couldn't afford to run a loop.
He said that during a planning board meeting?
Well, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look.
John, can you comment on that?
Yeah, we talked about requiring him to make a loop through Cranberry Meadows, because the loop he has going through Eagle Drive is really not a loop that contributes to the power, the pressure. We want him to go through Cranberry Drive and back out to Lawrence Street to make a legitimate loop, so, the pressure is, better for Riverhead, because you're going up a steep grade too, and they may actually need a pump station just to get the water up there, so I know myself, and I talked to a lot of public hearings, and Kevin was there, we are pretty much going to insist that he loop the water with a legitimate loop, and I think when Bob's water consultants look at the project, they're probably gonna be suggesting the same thing.
This pumping station, is this similar to what we did over in Fox?
If the pressure is good enough, correct.
Any other questions? All right. I think,
Marion handed me a note that we should just take a vote to formally open the warrant for the fall town meeting.
okay. Would you so move, sir?
I move to open the warrant for fall town meeting.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I think we're gonna defer the let's be sure we have an understanding of what we're gonna do with these ad hoc committees. So I'll do some framework around
Recall.
what we're looking for folks to do in terms of the recall provision. You're gonna frame the one regarding what I call charter committee, but different name for it.
Town Government Study Committee, yep.
Okay. There's a third petition, what was that? I forgot.
The other one was
Oh,
about
that
town
was
hall
town, no,
hours.
forget that.
No.
Okay,
It wasn't part of the
yeah, okay.
scope of what was asked.
Right. And we'll try to, I hope Jeff will be able to make the September 4th, but we've got to get this goals stuff
Yeah. That is the Tuesday after
after
Labor Day.
Yeah, you good on that date? Okay.
Tuesday after Labor Day
Yeah.
at 7 p.m. Yeah, it should be okay.
It's either that or we go long on the 11th. I mean, longer on the 11th. I mean, we have a meeting with the other, that would probably be about an hour with the other towns, I would think. So that's the other.
Are you going to be able to make the meeting on the 11th too? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. We could, can you start earlier?
How much are they?
Can you start like around 5? I mean,
On a Tuesday?
well, let me put it this way. If the 4th is a conflict, and I can see where the day after Labor Day might be a problem for somebody,
Oh.
to no fault. If we could move it to the 11th and start at 5, we could take that agenda up and put it before the all selectmen meeting. It's an option. But we need at least a couple of hours.
Yeah, I think I would prefer to start at 5 on the 11th, if the opportunity was there to do so.
You wanna do that?
I'd rather do that.
Okay.
I'm always in favor of one meeting.
Does that work better for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll cancel the meeting on the 4th and repost for the 5 o'clock on the 11th.
Okay.
And it'll be just the Board of Selectmen for our meeting from 5 to 7, and then we'll have the joint meeting at 7.
Okay.
That work? That work better for you, Kevin?
Sure does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, no, not at all.
And worst case scenario, we can always,
Only 3 of us. We try to
Continue.
accommodate all this we can. That will give us a little bit of a back-to-back on the 18th, but that's no big deal. I'm hoping on the 18th that we've got some information on timeframes for these folks at Lawrence Street.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
I mean, you already said it. I think the contractor wants to start moving fast, so,
Well, he wanted to start yesterday.
yeah.
This contractor, by the way, is located in Sharp Park, right next to our police station.
Oh,
He's a local
interesting.
guy.
Yeah, it's great.
Even better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is good.
yeah, and very good reputation, and he really wants to get going. And the faster we can get the capability to get that water line across there, the better.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That is one horrendous report.
Do we need to vote to go into executive session to finish out?
Is there
or-
any other public business? Al, did you have anything you wanted?
Not at all.
Just know where to go?
No, I wanted to meet Mr. Alcott before I leave.
Oh,
Oh, absolutely.
you want to take a 5-minute break and do that? We'll do it. Sure.
You know, move to go into a, well, no, I guess you
Well,
can't.
let's just take a 5-minute recess, and then
Alright.
we'll come back and,
But as far as NCTV goes, they can
They can-
close down for the night, right, is what you're,
oh. Good point.
So we're gonna move to go into executive session in
Right.
5 minutes.
Let's do that. So may I have a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation? If in this specific instance, it is in regard to run and gun and the current status of that particular multiple court rulings.
So moved.
I will second. Roll call vote.
Kevin Calcutt, aye.
Jim Lehan, aye. We will take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be going directly into executive session. We will not return to public session. There will be no votes taken during the executive session. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for tolerating the delay. Apologize for that. I hope everyone has a safe and remaining 2 weeks of summer.
Come on.
2 weeks.
2.5 weeks? 3?
5 weeks.
Well, school starts.
It's the best part of summer.
It doesn't impact me.
Well, not having any children in school, I view as I have 3 weeks. So thank you for joining us, and have a pleasant and safe remaining summer. Good night. Yeah, that's good. Let them go.